So this week we're talking about the story Stoner. Started reading some of that. So I guess the biggest theme that I've started kind of seeing emerge is almost like a depression, so to speak. William Stoner kind of seems like almost like down in the dumps, and I don't know if it's just because he's kind of floating along and just kind of almost existing, and it kind of reminds me a little bit of some of the stories that we've read here recently of people just kind of floating along and not really, not really having a specific way, or not really paying attention to what's going on around them, or being a very strong internal person. Like, it seems like he kind of just does what anybody else wants him to do. Like, he works on his father's farm, and is kind of just growing up that way, and that's what he's going to do with his life, and he's going to go to college for it. you know um, since it was offered to him, it doesn't seem like he has any passion for anything. And it's almost like he's just constantly depressed, or maybe he's suffering from depression. And I mean, especially like back in the 1960s, it wasn't like a big common thing for people to really know a lot about depression. I think the biggest thing that I'm learning about America, I'm almost seeing that it's kind of the same thing. Like, he's kind of just doing what his father did, and I think this still kind of holds true today. As it was back then. I mean, there wasn't a lot of different jobs. Like, if your father was a farmer, you were probably going to be a farmer. If your father was a shoemaker, you were probably going to be a shoemaker, because that's what you grew up learning and doing and everything else. And you kind of get stuck in that rut. And I mean, you even see it some today. I mean, I work in a factory, and some of my employees, I have father and son that almost work side by side. So it's not really a thing that hasn't changed, throughout, time, or from a long time ago. It's still kind of a similar thing that's happening. I know a lot of things change now, because a lot more people go to college, and they, you can be whatever you want to be, so to speak, and you can do whatever you want to do. But I think that was kind of one of the big things that you learn about America is, it's kind of like, okay, my father's a farmer, so I guess I'm going to be a farmer, even though he has like no passion and no real drive for it. And I think you kind of see this throughout the story thus far, is kind of, he just doesn't have a drive for really anything. Like, I know once he starts looking at literature, he kind of gets like a little bit of joy from that, but beyond that, he just kind of seems down in the dumps, and a lot of bad stuff happens to him, which never is a good thing. um, and the question, I guess, the last question is Stoner a complete loser? I guess for me, like, looking at loser as a broader term, I would say no. I think that he just kind of, like I said before, he's just kind of floating along. He's just kind of existing in life. Would I say he's a winner? No. Is he gonna do great things? Probably not. But I wouldn't say he's a loser, so to speak. In that fact, nobody's really a loser unless you're like in a race and you're second place, and then you're technically a loser. But I feel like for the story thus far, like, I feel like he just doesn't have any direction or drive, and just kind of does whatever anybody wants him to do. And I feel like if he had more passion, or maybe more inner working, so to speak, that maybe he would find that drive and find that passion, especially with literature and stuff, and go from there.